So we have Skully here with Dale Bellido. We are gonna
Like,
be going over the Chaos Control deck today. We're pretty much looking at where the meta is leading up to the World Championships for the end of October. It is the end of September right now. We just finished off GFC 10. There's only one tournament left this weekend. I think it's October 3rd or 6th, whatever this Saturday is, for FLC
yep.
15 will be the last chance for anyone to qualify. So leading up to the World Championship, we're going to be going over the three top decks, and then we will also go over other potential high tier decks. So you want to go over just quickly what the three top tier decks you want to go over, Dale?
Yeah, I think the top three decks right now, um, for sure are the two Chaos variants, Chaos Turbo and Chaos Control, which we're gonna look at today. And the last one is sort of like a Chaos Warrior aggro type. It pains me to not put Go Control in the top three, but it's just kind of where the meta shifted.
Yeah, looking at the top deck list, Goat Control has barely squeaked into top eight the last like four events now,
Yeah,
so it is what it
I,
is.
I yeah, I think part of it is the people that used to play Go Control or like the best players are now deciding to put it down and pick up like sure Go Control was the test of skill, so to say, in this format, but like you gotta play if you're not playing Go Control and you're against these three matches, you're playing an uphill battle. And what's the point, right?
Yeah, like it's kind of gone beyond just play goat mirrors for fun and for the skill of playing the mirror, and people have kind of switched it up to, I'd say, in the last like 8 months of I want to play the very best deck because I want the win. But at
Of
the same
course,
time,
exactly,
like these chaos control decks, they still are goat control. It's just a different
for
version
sure.
of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, like there's there's no honor points in playing Go Control anymore. Like if you win with it, I don't think would honestly make much. It makes it harder to win with, but it's not gonna make much difference, in my opinion, if you win with Chaos Control, with Chaos Turbo,
Right, and truly
Chaos Warrior.
the difference between chaos control and goat control is what chaos sorcerer instead of air knight.
Yeah,
It's not the
it
biggest jump.
yeah, it's like it's Chaos Control. Sorry, it's Chaos Sorcerer versus Air Knights and Premature Call the Haunted type of thing, where you can out of nowhere have game shot. Where Chaos Control, it's kind of like grind your opponent down.
Right, like you're still playing decks based around metamorphosis and scapegoat. It's just with the chaos engine in it. So
Yeah, like in my opinion, the best grinder deck, like the best long game deck is Chaos Control because there's so many boss monsters.
right,
It's just it will Chaos Control normally gives you the weirdest looking hands. The early game is definitely its weakest part, but you're
well,
getting out of the early with less Chaos Warrior and aggro around. Even though that's starting to make a comeback, this deck is able to sustain the early game. It has a strong mid game and even stronger late game.
yeah, I think that was where we saw the difference really between chaos turbo and chaos control. Is turbo kind of tried to cut out any card that wasn't good early game since your main
Yeah.
board in three chaos sorcerers, whereas chaos control might have a little bit weaker of an early game, but has a
Yep.
much stronger longer game because it has the metamorphosis on top of the chaos sorcerers.
Yeah, like it has the most phenomenal long game for sure. I guess we can get into like the first iteration of Chaos Control,
Right.
which
So
is
we're gonna look at Angel Chaos first. I guess this deck did kind of come out around the same time as generic Chaos Control, but
yeah.
it's much different than it's not played as much now, and it's much different than regular Chaos Control, but it's still a variant of it.
Yeah, this deck was obviously built around around the time when Goat Control was probably the most played deck. So it needed answers for Air Knight. Um, it needed answers for TR, which you're seeing in Triple Book, Double Tsukiyomi. And it still played the older stuff like Call of the Haunted. And that's there's a lot of things that you no longer see in this type of deck. You don't see Merchant anymore. You don't see obviously Shining Angel. You don't see
Skill dark.
there's yeah, there's better darks now. Not better darks now, but there's just a
More
better choice
important.
of yeah. And DD Warrior Lady obviously like there's so much space to make in this deck with those light monsters, those light spaces of the three angels, Warrior Lady, and the two merchants that aren't really needed, which is six solid deck spots.
I personally never saw the appeal to this deck myself. Of when like people would compare this to a version running Thunder Dragon before Thunder Dragon Chaos was like the most popular deck by far in GOAT format. Um, I I just generally never. I personally never saw getting the value out of Shining Angel without
Yeah,
anything to work with it. Other than I guess the big thing was that you can go Angel into Faith or Merchant with a Book of Moon or
yeah,
Tsukiyomi or Metamorphosis. This was
yeah,
never a
and
deck that I played a lot, so like, but when I did use it, I never found searching out those cards with Angel to be optimal
I think the big thing about Angel is the same thing that Chaos Turbo is doing now,
with
where it
Tomato.
was letting you set every turn
Mm-hmm.
and making your opponents knock just a little bit, like making them have to think, should I do it? Should I not? Is it worth it? Type of thing. Most of the time, you're gonna do it, but it just makes your likelihood of getting your faith to go off and your merchant to go off. It's protecting your flips.
Issue that I would have when I would use this would be opening hands where I don't want to set Scapegoat and Angel at the same time, which
Yeah,
people would just say, well, then don't set them both, which, sure, but you come up with situations where I found with using this deck of Angel and Scapegoat colliding against each other a little too often.
yeah, yeah. Like before, like Spirit Reaper would get played, and you didn't want to take a Reaper shot on the first turn. And before setting Deco, setting Scapegoat would be kind of your block up to that.
Mm-hmm.
Where setting Angel and Scapegoat don't really, outside of blocking that play, there's
Right,
not much more that it does.
right, and then like you're opening yourself up for like a awful breaker to be summoned.
Yeah.
Um,
The only thing I do like about the older deck is it's so frowned upon now is it's playing one revival in call, which like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 targets where call is dead. You're playing two spirits, three chaos monster. Well, sorry, so just the two spirits, and then you're not banishing too many things from your graveyard. But I'm still a fan of revival. Maybe not so much call, premature more so, but
right.
you could do a lot of tricks with call. So
Yeah, Call was primarily played in this deck. That was said because you could use it during the battle phase. Was the
yeah,
main reason to pull up a defender,
yeah,
which I guess also works better than premature for some situations here because you could go end phase, call a flip monster, and then reset it on
yep,
your turn where premature can't really do that. And
yeah, yeah,
you have a chance to get to your faith and merchant faster because of the angels.
yeah. I guess the only reason I like premature better is because you can hide it. You can just you hold it
Right.
for game shot, right?
I don't have too much more to say about this deck. I don't predict that anyone will be entering worlds with this deck.
Yeah, it's the meta's evolved, and we probably won't see Shining Angel in a deck unless it's just straight recruiter type of recruiter chaos.
Mm-hmm. So moving on from there, we have this was Bearston the
Bearston,
Bold's
yeah,
deck that he qualified for Worlds with by climbing the dueling the Discord Goat Rank ladder. So this was kind of
yeah,
the standard Thunder Dragon Chaos deck at the time, or standard
yeah,
Chaos Control deck at the time. As you still see, the Skill Dark is still in here.
yeah. He also grinded season 1 of the
Dueling
dueling
Book
book
ladder.
ladder too. Yeah,
Okay.
which like I guess no one is playing anymore after they reset. All those players that were doing it the first time didn't want to do it again,
Yeah,
and
I mean that, and
he
it's
did
just
really
a
well. He was in the top 5 win rates. I don't know if he was strictly using this deck, but I've spoken to him a couple times, and he was very. I believe he was using this deck most of the time, and this is kind of similar to what we're seeing. Very similar to what we're seeing now. Less traps, Thunder Dragons, obviously, which is one of the big things of why Chaos Control is so strong now.
I like it a lot more with Thunder Dragon in the deck compared to Angel being able to tribute off a Thousand Eyes Restrict that's on the board
Yep.
by having Thunder Dragon in your hand and making level
Yeah.
5s with Metamorphosis. I found that to be a big issue with the previous deck we were looking at, where there's very few ways to get the Thousand Eyes off the board.
Yeah. I like the first deck is more of like a turtle. It's it has more of a defensive.
More answering your opponent's cards.
Yeah, it's like sit back, hope your opponent does this. I can answer it with this, but it's really slow, right? Out of like that deck could get blown out in one turn without noticing because you're put in positions like you said where you don't want to set Scapegoat and Angel, and sometimes you kind of need to do that, and it's hard to see.
Right, so whereas in here you're able to go up to the third goat and you have Dekochis instead.
Yeah, Scapegoat is so strong right now, especially in with Goat Control being out, and that was the de facto Azure Priest deck where
Right.
they would run up to 2, and Scapegoat was definitely weaker in the mirror match. It's so strong now, especially against Turbo. Against aggro, it's very good too. Turbo just takes a long time to kill the goats because they try not to commit too many stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he's running a card that Turbo didn't run, which is why I value Chaos Control a little bit more than Turbo. Not much more, is Tribe, exactly what you're going over. Tribe and Premature.
Yeah.
I think there's sometimes there's a space for Tribe, and
Yeah,
you need it to answer.
looking at the turbo decks, Tribe is always one of the most surprising cards I saw that people cut. I mean,
Yeah,
I get the motto of building that turbo deck was kind of we're gonna take out any card that doesn't have cast in the name that we don't want turn one, and
yeah, like yeah,
Tribe was on that list apparently. But you have so many good
yeah,
discard outlets in the deck. You have no
yeah,
good answers to Scapegoat in the deck. You're not even playing Torrential Tribute to clear
yeah.
Scapegoats. So that was one card where I was like, I don't know about cutting Tribe Infected Virus yet.
Yeah, I can't wait for us to do the Chaos Turbo because there's so much to say, and it's so interesting that they've not killed, they've removed so many what we thought were staples,
For 15 year
and
staples and one events
yeah,
with it. So
yeah,
it is
and like
interesting.
dominated events, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is the more standard version of Chaos Control that we probably would have seen Thunder Dragon Chaos Control prior to 6 months ago, or not even maybe 4 or 5 months ago, where
Like
it still ran like the skill Dark Magician will do absolutely nothing right now. Maybe that was meant to another answer for an Air
aggro
Knight
aggro was very
aggro knight.
popular at the time too.
Yeah, but I don't even see the maybe it's like the one solid dark monster you could play.
I think that's kind of where it goes to. These decks are a little lighter on darks than even popping back to this build over here,
Yeah.
the Angel one. It's like I guess the skill darks there because you don't want to play two Dekochis for some reason.
Yeah, and the metas are the darks, the other darks.
Yep. Interesting thing to consider too is when both these decks were around was kind of before the Chaos Warrior deck appeared too.
Yeah.
So like this deck, 6 flips that lose to Blade Knight. Skill Dark also lost to Blade Knight.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see how the Warrior Chaos deck was able to
Yeah, the Chaos War deck
take
destroyed this
over
deck only
these.
because yeah.
A lot of the turn one plays were not very good. The Angel one probably had a little bit better of a gameplay, having the Angels to search, but they didn't have the best search targets either. So
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely evolved from here. You don't often see triple Dekoichi in decks anymore now too, especially if you lose it to knock. Like this deck is only setting a few cards, right? It's only setting Dekoichis, Faith, Sangan, maybe.
maybe Skill Dark, maybe Warrior
Maybe
Lady.
Skill Dark, maybe Warrior Lady, but that's like 50% of the time you're hitting a flip.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, imagine you lose Deco, your Tsukiyomi is only really meant for TR lock and maybe to kill to +1 on your opponent's side of the field, but they're just you lose the recycle effect with Tsukiyomi if you have very few flips.
Yeah, so we're gonna move on now to so these two decks were kind of probably early 2020. We're still considered at the top in the front of the line, and we're gonna move on here to Chris Perovic's deck that he won FLC 13 with.
Yes. And this is definitely a game changer because it came out when if you were playing Chaos Control, why play Chaos Control when you could play Chaos Turbo type of thing?
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much value in this deck that like maybe a lot of people don't even see outside of game 1, game 2 type of thing, where it's in my opinion playing the best trap in the game in Regeki Break.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Regeki Break is phenomenal. If I spoke to myself in 2005 and said, "You got to play Regeki Break," I'd probably yeah, I'm pretty sure someone said that to me back then.
Would you tell yourself Regeki Break or Thunder Dragon?
Exactly, like Regeki Break, Thunder Dragon, and like I'm
tell
going back
just
to
tell yourself those two cards, figure it out from there.
Exactly, like I played one BLS and I didn't even look at Chaos Source. Like it's insane.
I think,
and it's not just me, right? It was all of us in 2005.
2005 Nationals. I think John LeBounty was the only one for top 8 of Nationals. He played
With
Chaos Sorcerer.
One Chaos
and
Sorcerer.
That was considered weird at the time.
Yeah. Like when I came back into Go format, so I played a very old, maybe like GFC 5 or 6 when I was at work.
Mm-hmm.
And I played like a chaos-ish type of deck, but like not a chaos. It was Go Control, but with a Chaos Sorcerer. And I cut it again after that. I don't know why, but
well, without the Thunder Dragon, it's kind of a stretch.
That's probably what it was.
To
right?
fit
I had
in,
Air Knights.
Yeah, you need that extra light engine. If you're just relying on Warrior Lady, Air Knights, and Magician of Faith, and Magician gets Nobleman, you have potential to draw a dead Chaos Sorcerer, or be in spots where you end up discarding your BLS to have a light in the grave for the Chaos Sorcerer.
Exactly. Like
you get in those awkward positions.
Yeah, like I'm like I kind of always need this graceful so I could safely get one of my lights in the grave.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so where to start?
Yeah. Well, I'd like to start with Dark Mimic level 1.
Yes.
I think there actually has been other Chaos Control decks before this one for sure that have ran Dark Mimic level 1.
That played Mimic level 1, yep.
Yeah. I mean, even Goat Control, like Jazz's Goat Control build was probably considered, his last version was considered one of the best Goat Control builds, and he had moved over from Dakochi's to, I shouldn't say Dakochi's, he had moved over for, I think he cut like Warrior Lady or Sewer Priest or something to fit in Dark Mimic level 1. Or maybe cut a Merchant, I don't remember exactly, but to get in the Dark level 1.
Yeah.
The cool thing with it in this deck is the fact that you're on a Mystic Tomato.
Yep. Like even in my version of Go Control that I topped with and I played a lot is I ran 1 Deco, 1 Mimic only because I wanted extra Tsukiyomi targets.
Yep.
And if one got knocked, I still might have had a chance later. And yeah, the Mimic level 1 to Mimic level 3 isn't gimmicky.
No, so like off a tomato here, you can go into Mimic level 1, and then during your standby phase, you can decide, do I want to leave it out to use with a Metamorphosis, a Book of Moon, a Tsukiyomi, or do I want to send it to the graveyard to summon Mimic level 3 out of the deck, who will then have the ability, if it dies by battle, to draw 2 cards?
Yeah, and there's so much value in that one play.
How many options is that off a tomato dying? That's insane.
But what makes this deck so good is, okay, let's say you go turn 1, Thunder Dragon discard, add 2, and your tomato gets hit, you bring out a Mimic, and then on your turn you go to Mimic level 3. You thin your deck so fast, a lot of people don't notice that, right? And the other thing is like it makes these Mimics level 1, level 3 make your tomatoes even better. After your first tomato goes for Sangan and you go to Snake, it also protects your sets. Like
from Mind Control you literally and Nobleman.
Yeah, so see, Mind Control in game 2, it's just, does your opponent...
I wouldn't even bring it in.
Mind Control... Exactly.
If I see Mimic level 3 and Tomato and Sinister and Sangan, I'm not siding in Mind Control against you. I might Mind Control a Suki. Like, I'm asking to go negative.
Exactly. But like in this matchup, you almost have to side it in and not play it till you're sure or hold it as an answer for Chaos Sorcerer,
Mm-hmm.
which makes Mind Control much weaker. Like Mind Control on a Faith is the most disgusting swing that you see.
Oh, against the cat, my control is so great because the Chaos Turbo deck has cut its Tsukiyomis out of the deck. It has maxed out a Magician of Faiths, and being able to mind control, and it's max Chaos monsters. So against having that in your sideboard for the Chaos Turbo deck is amazing. You come up against this, you're like, well, this kind of looks like Chaos Turbo. It's got Regeki breaks. It's got all these draw cards. It's got Chaos monsters. But no, you don't want to bring it in against this. It could be. I'm sure Chris beat people by them mind controlling useless things.
For sure, for sure. I wish we could pull some replays. And what I mentioned earlier about this deck, Chaos Control being a very slow, a very weak early game deck, you're getting into your mid game and your late game much faster because you're digging through your deck really quickly. And
Mm-hmm.
you're making your opponent answer. Either you start to blow them out and run far ahead, or you're making your opponent answer your stuff much earlier. And then you're just, when they're answering your stuff earlier, you can answer their stuff with even with less things, right? Like they're forced to stop your tempo with maybe dropping a sorcerer early, and
Even
then you're able to answer that.
even them having to like summon their own tomato to attack over your level one because it's been beating on them puts them
Yeah,
in a spot where it's like, well, now I have to summon a Chaos Sorcerer earlier than I wanted to get the Mimic level 3 off the field because I don't want them to draw a card.
yeah. Like a lot of people will like a lot of people. My main test partner in Loop is still a non-believer of this deck and just thinks Dekoichi is has so much more value than
Well,
Mimic level 1 and
Leba-
Mimic level 3. I've yet to change his mind, but hopefully one day.
Labounty feels the same way for me talking to him. He is we'll look at Chris Ivan Flores' deck next, but he ragged on him pretty hard for still using the dark mimics.
I,
So
there is there's a lot of value that I hope people
you do
start to
you do
uncover with this card.
you do feel it sometimes though, whereas like flip summoning dark mimic level 1, if you don't have the meta in your hand, is actually a really crappy spot to put yourself in.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
and there'll be
especially
times where you're like, well, I want to see the next card right now. I'm gonna flip it.
yeah.
And then it's like, well, I wish this was Dekochi right now. So I do see where people are coming from, but as far as synergy goes, I think the level 1 makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, it was definitely this deck was definitely made with Chaos Turbo in mind,
Mm-hmm.
right? It like this deck is very weak to Azure Priest, right? Especially since its answer to Azure Priest are only so there since a lot of people are cutting Sakuretsu's, it's the 2 books, which doesn't completely answer it because you can't kill it unless you have a tomato.
Yeah, all 5
A
traps.
tomato and like the other level and breaker sorcerer, obviously. The mirror force and the 2 Regeki breaks.
And the bringing
So
in torrential, but
yeah, Azure Priest is one of those cards that are never really seems amazing in your hand. Type of like whenever I had Azure Priest, I never thought it was broken, but I've never noticed how I've been on the opposite side, knowing that this Azure Priest is so oppressive and I can't do what I want to do because of this Azure Priest.
I mean, I've lost games just of like 5 turns in a row. I don't have an answer to a Sewer Priest.
Yeah,
And it's like, well,
like you can only
it
yeah
is
you
what
can
it
only
is.
stop it
I
really with the trap.
mm-hmm. This deck specifically, like you said, Book of Moon's not even a real answer.
Yeah.
No revival cards,
Um.
so it's not like you're tribute summoning Thunder Dragon off into attack over.
Yeah, and I guess one thing we failed to I failed to mention or we failed to mention is in the Chaos Turbo matchup, the card destruction is getting like weaker and weaker. Not only is it tough to play in the mirror match, like even against this deck, you don't really want to play it against because if the Thunder Dragons are resolved early,
Mm-hmm.
it's defense to duo, defense to card D.
I mean, another key card I wanted to mention of the strength of this deck, other than Thousand Times Restrict, um, obviously we're in a giant chaos meta. is
Yeah.
Darkblade the Dragon Knight.
Yeah. Huge.
Your your metas are definitely not just for Thousand Eyes here.
Yeah.
Summoning Darkblade is can literally win you the game many times. We saw a ton in GFC 10 where combination of Kaikus and Darkblades were just shutting down the game.
Yeah. Like there's a lot of things that can happen. Like if the Fates get against a Chaos Turbo deck, if the Fates get knocked and the Thunder Dragons are in the grave and Darkblade hits once, all the lights are gone.
Right.
And their big plays are, mind you, there's still a way for them to grind out a win, but it's just way harder with only having maybe one more Chaos Monster to drop
You can
after
literally
you Regeki break
you can
your
literally
BLS away
turn hands into dead cards.
instantly. Yeah,
Like you could turn a 3 card hand into a 1 card hand.
and it's a lot of people don't. Maybe I'm wrong here, but a lot of people aren't looking for that. Like they know it's there, but a lot of the times they don't.
Yeah, like I said, I saw it a lot of GFC 10, especially in like the top 4. But I agree. I don't think that people look hard enough for Darkblade. Darkblade and Fiend Skull Dragon as well. Honestly, I don't think is summoned enough either.
Yeah,
Can't be targeted by traps. Everyone's playing
yeah,
Regeki Break and negates
yeah,
flips without even having to attack them.
yeah.
Playing Thunder Dragons to get it out. It's 2 major fusion monsters besides Thousand Eyes Restrict that can change the game here.
Yeah, like the only gripe about it, not even gripe, is like it's always been like that. Is there's no effective level 5 answer for um a Gravekeeper Spy.
No, that is for sure.
Yeah, which
So which
yeah, I
we
mean
we'll see right
yeah.
here in the next
Speaking of
set.
Gravekeeper Spy,
So this
and
version was from Chris Flores. Got fourth place. Was it fourth place? Fourth place with it at GFC 10, and pretty interesting build.
yeah, and I'm a super fan of this deck as well too because it's following the meta trend, right? If the meta trend hopped onto Chaos Control
Off a
with
turbo.
Mimics, yeah,
So
it's playing the cards that are difficult to deal with in Gravekeeper Spy
yep.
and Air Knight.
And
The only thing I do not like about his deck is the random Blade Knight
mm-hmm.
because like you normally have a field
Yeah, I mean
and
that
it's not.
it easily could have been the third Magician of Faith, right?
It could have been the third Magician of Faith. It could have been, maybe it could have been another Spell and Trap. Like he's running, so like he's even running the card that I like in Premature. Like I think Premature has space, like warrants. There's merit to run Premature right now because
So
you sometimes you need to use Tribe more than once, and Tribe is a card not like Abyss Soldier that normally makes it to the graveyard. Like Abyss Soldier, normally the answer for it is like a Chaos Monster to banish it.
whereas Tribe's getting attacked
Tribe
over.
Tribe is small, right? He gets trampled. A lot of times they'll go break a back row, crash it
Yeah,
into it, and
I would almost rather see Blade Knight in the side deck for when you're going second to have a good turn one play.
yeah, you know what? Like even Azura Priest is probably better than that Blade thing.
Yeah, I would say so too. But beyond that, I still like the spies in the deck. I don't think
Yep,
running 2 spy is a big deal,
yep.
um, especially with everyone running. Actually, even I think we saw in tournament in top 4, um, someone only playing 2 spies had one open 2 set 1 that had this one in their hand trap dust shooted back in to
Oh
make the
wow,
set 1 live. I think Lucas did that to
wow.
somebody. He trap dust shooted him and it backfired on him. Um, Cards like Kaiku we see replacing the Skill Dark Magicians. Uh,
Yep.
Kaiku is probably going to be one of the most popular cards for the World Championships, I would guess.
It's like an MVP type of card right now, or like it's not even flying under the radar anymore. It's a card that's probably amongst test circles the
Mm-hmm.
most highly contemplated
Just
card
am I
in
playing
main.
two? Am I playing 2 or 3?
Yeah,
That's probably the
type of
question
thing.
right now. Which brings you back over to Tsukiyomi, which had been seeing less and less play, and I think is going to need to be included to turn off these Kaikus.
Yeah, see, and that's one thing that I may have not liked about his deck is the second Tsukiyomi is very strong in the chaos control matchup as well too, in the mirror match, because you got to turn down like even Kaiku's
Thousand
like this. You
Eyes.
got to Thousand Eyes especially,
It does come
and
back to
if you
though trying to combat the Chaos Turbo deck that's still alive. Whereas like as
yeah
this deck wants to put more options in it, you're still trying to make your opening hands as good as you can because you're playing against a deck that is based on having great opening hands.
yeah yeah
And dead cards are an issue when you're playing Metamorphosis. I like only the two Chaos Sorcerers and Chaos Control. I don't think the deck should play three. Um,
nope
I see the
I,
argument
I I agree there
for it, but if you're gonna play three, then you might as well switch to Turbo.
exactly. Yeah, Turbo is a better utilizes triple chaos sorcerer.
I actually do love this side deck though. Um, I like the
Yeah,
mind
this is a
control.
side deck that's a little bit more built for like the world championships because
This is like throw your opponent off side deck.
yeah
Decrees cover major things. Dust shoots cover major things. The one return I think is great. If your opponent even just they're putting in kaikus to the max, having return could
yep
be an alternate win condition. The third kaiku to put in against when you come up against the mirror match, the mind control for the same reason. I probably don't love the creature swap, but kinetic soldier has been. I think everyone should have kinetic soldier in their side deck for worlds.
yeah it's funny I've never I in 2005 I had Connect Soldier in my side deck and I haven't thought of re-siding it again only because of Chaos War but like if I think about it the theory around it versus Chaos Warrior is still very good right they have to
The
out it
and
with
the
a
answer
boss monster right
having the answer to Blade Knight and they have to out a boss monster. Yeah, for sure. They only if you put that thing in attack mode, they're not answering without sorcerer for the most part.
yeah but yeah I mean I'm a big fan of the changes that he's made for sure.
Yeah, that. What do you think of the Air Knight in particular?
See, it's between the Air Knight and the Tsukiyomi for the mirror match, but Air Knight just applies so much pressure in the mirror, especially since it's similar to Azura, where you have to answer it the
Mm-hmm.
same way. You have to answer it with Regeki Break, Mirror Force, Book.
Do you think
I guess
a safer build of this deck is the same deck but with the sewers in the main and the Air Knight and Blade in the side?
that would be I think that would be a much better version of
Yeah,
this.
I guess that's why the creature swaps here too. Though, like if you're Poseidon swap with two, sewer priest is pretty nice. But
Yep,
yeah. How do you feel about creature swap in general?
it
I'd be
needs to be it
I'd
needs to be in the side deck. If not, it's almost
I'd be afraid.
teetering
I'd
one.
be afraid to use it at all.
I no, so it's in the side deck only because Chaos Control has gotten so popular that there's scapegoats and there's tomatoes and there's Mimic level 1,
Mm-hmm.
Mimic level 3,
Right.
where in the
So
Chaos Turbo matchup it kind of acts similar to a Mind Control where you can take so much like you're not worried about getting a scapegoat back, but you put yourself you play in positions where you're either going to steal faith or you're like they have to give you a Chaos Sorcerer or a faith.
yeah, I
Right,
don't.
and if you got
I think I'd feel safer with mind control at this point.
you put both in, I think
You
they
like the
both
one on
warrant.
one?
Yeah, only because you against Chaos Turbo I mentioned before, you have to answer the face downs without flipping them.
It's true. You can swap and then just tribute the monster off for a Thunder Dragon as well.
If you want, right? Like,
Like
or if
say you do a poor swap and
a tomato.
you get a tomato. Yeah, you
Yeah,
get a even if you got a sinister or something. At
yeah,
least at that point you can still tribute it off. Whereas with mind control, you're not playing meta on the card. You're not sacking it for a Thunder Dragon. You're just going
yeah.
pure negative and handing it back.
Yep, exactly.
All right, so I guess we'll look at the last deck. This one defeated Chris Flores' deck to get third place. Pretty similar. This is Lucas's deck, and this one's kind of
Yeah,
more of a bit of a blend between Turbo and Control, I guess.
yeah. My biggest gripe about this deck is it's not running Regeki Break.
Mm-hmm.
It's only playing the 3 traps, and Book is okay. Like Book is a good card. Like Book Chaos Sorcerer is one of those like really strong plays. But
Right.
Book against Turbo is not very good unless you're already mounting. And it just Thunder Dragons are just kind of there for defense to duo, defense to card, not necessarily defense to card D, and better Gracefuls, but it does run the same properties as like trying to thin the deck and having more tomato targets.
I think what
Um,
I like of this deck compared to the Perovic deck, even, I think going down to one Mystic level 3 seems more optimal.
yeah, that's fine. That's for sure fine. But I think you need Regeki Break, and that's what's making this deck very good right now,
Mm-hmm.
is being able to run Regeki Break
I guess the other
well,
thing we should
right?
mention is the big difference of all these decks is no Night Assailant compared to the Turbo deck.
Yeah,
So like you're still playing Regeki Break, but you're not playing it to the point where you have a million cards that you want to discard.
yeah, yeah.
A question I
And
did have for you is
yeah,
how do you feel about Sinister Serpent? Is it, do you still have to play it at this point?
I think so.
What?
But what are you cutting for it? That's the thing, right? Like the Chaos Warrior deck was able to cut it.
Mm-hmm. I think Chaos Control you have to play it. I don't want to get too much into Turbo tonight,
Yeah.
but I think Turbo could potentially cut Sinister Serpent if you're playing the Night Assailants
Mm,
and you're not playing metas.
yeah, that's something I think we'll dig
Yeah,
a little
we'll
deeper
save
into.
that for
Maybe,
another time when we get into
yeah,
Turbo. But yeah, for here, I guess you definitely want it. You're playing Sangan to get. You're playing Tomato, get to Sang, get to Serpent, use your metas. Of course, you want it.
yeah. And this is one of those decks that is thriving because there's so few Azure Priest in the meta. But even then, if like Azure Priest drops, like you might go into Newdoria right away. Newdoria is super, super, super underrated.
Oh, you think so? I was gonna ask how you thought about it because it's definitely not a card I would immediately put in.
It it's funny, like in the beginning of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, like very early competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, especially for the Canadians.
Mm-hmm.
When we were traveling to the States,
Well, you guys were on
the
Tomato
first
first.
on yeah, we were on like Tomato, like in our locals in our area, we mostly played like Tomato because it accessed Sangan, accessed Witch, and we were playing Newdoria because you're just like an answer card. And the thing was, all the Canadians, like the first four events, every Canadian topped the US event had Newdoria in their main deck. So just I have this fond attachment to it. But I think overall it's definitely there's space for it in the meta.
I mean, it's nice that it can attack over pretty much 1200 is enough to get over any monster that's set turn one, including Tomato.
So yeah, but one of the big things that's good with Newdoria that a lot of people maybe won't notice is I preach all the time how difficult it is to get rid of Gravekeeper Spy.
Mm-hmm.
And if they flip the Gravekeeper Spy
Oh yeah,
and you have Newdoria, you answer it.
hit the
You out
attack
both
mode one
spies.
and pop the defense one. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. It's one of those things where now you don't have to like if there were two spies in defense, your answers are Chaos Sorcerer, the traps, obviously, like a torrential, you're torrentialing, and tribe. But do you really want to waste the tribe on and then metamorphosis? But like you're wasting, you're making
Right. Well,
the
literally
least optimal plays.
any card you use on a Doria, you're not really happy about it. You don't want to book a Moon it. You don't want to use your
Yeah,
Nobleman on it. You're not playing many traps in these decks. Do you want to use? You really want to use your Regeki Breaker on a Doria? More
yeah,
likely, you want to take whatever the attack was and hopefully cast Sorcerer it. But
yeah,
no, the 1200 comes in handy. I think that's where the Dark Mimic level one really, like if Dark Mimic level one was 1100 attack, it would be I think it would probably be a staple almost.
yeah,
It would
yeah.
be
I
a
can see
much
that.
more powerful card. So that's where Nidoria kind of comes in of having that,
Yeah,
getting over that 1000 threshold of defense of the Dark Mimic level ones and the Dekochis, and you could attack over magicians and merchants and all that. So yeah, it brings an extra package to Mystic Tomato for sure.
Yeah, and Midoriya is one of those cards that are constantly sided. Like for me, when I would side Midoriyas, um, or have Midoriya in my side deck, it almost always came in game 2, game 3, because it answered a lot of the stuff that are coming in. Like it would even be a good mind control bait type of thing. It's a good knock bait.
Blade Knight
It's
bait.
good against aggro. It's good
Mm-hmm.
against goat control because you need it. Well, not goat control so much.
No, but
It's good against Azura Priest.
Warriors, sure, it's great against though. Like if you put it, if you set it, they could Mystic level 2 it, I guess. But if you normal summon Doria, they're not answering it with
Yeah,
a Chaos Monster.
it's 100% normal summon card
Mm-hmm.
in that. In certain matchups, there's like it's for sure has to be face up, or it's a set to hide it. There's obviously small scenarios which suck, but like flip deco, attack it if you set it.
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't know if we should talk about side decking. Maybe side deck is a video that we could do at the very end and talk about, because that could be one quick video as itself where side decking options.
Yeah, I would say so. Just because
Yeah,
once we look at the whole meta as a whole of what needs to be countered, we'll leave it off at this though. What would you side deck against Chaos Control?
Azura. I probably said Azura Priest maybe 100 times in this video.
Trap Dust Shoot as well.
Yeah, Trap to Shoot's one of those like cards that you're seeing being mained.
Mm-hmm.
But Dust Shoot. The reason why Dust Shoot's weaker in this deck against this deck is because there's more different answers. There's answers in Metamorphosis.
Yep.
And the thing about Chaos Control is it's a slow deck. It's gonna draw that Chaos monster again,
Mm-hmm.
and the deck doesn't really explode. Like if you played it, the deck kind of just grinds you down. Where when you're dust shooting, you're kind of trying to prevent the shift in momentum, where you could see that dust shoot being good, but most of the time it's grinding you through.
I would say right now the biggest advantage that this deck has, though, where I would consider it probably right now before we go through discussing everything else, I think this is the top contender to win Worlds. This Chaos
For sure,
Control,
yeah, yeah, that's why
and
I guess that's why we both decided to start with it.
that is because it has extra answer to Kaiku in Metamorphosis.
Yeah,
Is
like
what I
Kaiku.
think it comes down to.
Yeah, because like if someone goes, if you're playing Turbo and you just set a monster and set any back row, let's give you any possible back row that deck plays.
Yep.
Kaiku, first turn Kaiku, no, or not first turn Kaiku Nobleman. Like, sure, you could
No.
do Kaiku Nobleman first turn. They have to find a way to answer
Mid,
that Kaiku.
mid to late game Kaiku is devastating. And this deck
Yeah,
has the most answers to it with Tsukiyomi and Metamorphosis, and it can play whatever traps you want to play. You want to play Regeki Breaks, you want to play just the Ring Mirror Force Torrential, you want to just play Call the Haunted in it. Like, you could play a ton of cards that flow together in this deck that it's the most comprehensive answer anything deck, where that's where I would say why I said earlier that it evolved from Goat Control, which Goat
yeah,
Control's big thing was it can answer anything, and Chaos
yeah,
Control might do it a little less consistently because you're forcing some stuff in to make Chaos Sorcerer more alive to give it some more power, and Thunder Dragon in it to give it some more defense against big plays and some bigger plays in itself with Power Graceful Charity plays. But
yeah.
overall, this deck has the most answers to everything.
Exactly. Yeah, it has like we both agreed on. It has the most. It plays all the best power cards, right?
The most versatile card over Geki Break, and the most
Yeah,
power cards of the Chaos Monsters, and Thousand Eyes
yeah,
Restrict, and the other access to the Fusion Toolbox.
yeah. And one thing I want to leave off before we get off from Kaiku is a lot of people don't notice the defensive presence that Kaiku has when you have one on the field. You can freely flip your own monsters and start attacking with them and not be worried about their Kaiku banishing your stuff because they can't banish when your Kaiku's up.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Oh yeah,
so
no,
it's just
the
like if there's two Kaikus on the field, right? No one's banishing anything. So it's kind of like the pre-defense to like if anything they'll probably have to go Kaiku crash and then summon a chaos monster.
yeah. I
But
mean,
like But yeah, with face up monsters, you're okay with like maybe pressing with not in this deck so much, but like maybe decks that run tomato or have a flipped up faith or have a flipped up.
A card I could see coming back into play is called Haunted. Um,
Yeah,
I used the Chaos Return deck, and there was times where I literally just played Return from a Different Dimension to put Kaiku back on the board for my opponent's turn, so they couldn't beat me that turn
yeah,
because they couldn't summon a Chaos monster, and Kaiku could do a similar thing of, well, you killed my Kaiku, I'm just gonna turn back on the effect of you can't banish from your graveyard.
yeah, yeah. It's. I think Call is one of those cards that might catch on for after the World Championship.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, maybe in time for World Championship 2021.
That and return I did want to mention before earlier as well. Of your opponent's bringing in Kaikus and they're banishing all your stuff. Return is a just a here's game because you banished all my
Yeah,
stuff card. It is kind of the counter to the counter.
yep. And it's one of those cards that like it's hard to read.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times, if you're making hard reads on stuff, it's in a deck that runs Scapegoat too. It could easily mask itself as a Scapegoat or
And a single one of from a side deck.
yeah, it's just so random
It's
that it would
if
steal a
you
game.
if you decide that's your read, you're making the wrong read.
Yeah, yeah,
Statistically, you're making a misplay, or you're just
yeah.
being a robot. But anything else to say about the deck before we sign off?
No, outside of it being the top contender, and yeah, there's so many different versions, iterations of this deck that you could play, and they would all still be, as we could see in the last GFC, they were effective, right? You had two Chaos Thunder Dragon Chaos Control decks that were
In top
fairly
four.
different
Yep.
in top four, and it's not like the Go Control decks that you'd see of past where they were almost like carbon copies of each other. Outside of maybe 4 or 5 cards that were swapped,
Oh yeah,
you're seeing
entire different trap lineups here, and
yeah,
monster
different trap
lineups are
lineup.
different.
Yeah, like an aggro version versus a sit back control version, right? Like they're both very good, but they're both different.
For sure. We're seeing the power of meta, Thunder Dragon, Chaos Sorcerer, and then whatever people want to cook up to go with them.
Yeah, the World Championship is in less than a month, right? From today. Today's the 30th, I guess.
Yep. So
So
it's about 23 days away.
yeah, so we might have to fire these videos faster than one per week, or else we won't.
We're
It
gonna have to
won't
do
be
a few.
a lead up to World Championship type of video.
So, what deck can people look forward to hearing about next time?
Next week I think we're talking about, or next video is Chaos Turbo.
All right, awesome. So, we'll see you guys next time, and we'll go over our Chaos Turbo review leading into the World Championships. Later, guys.
All right, see ya.